feet. That's good. Must have been 30 seconds early. Okay, does everybody know everybody? Do we need introductions? Any new faces or not? I do, but everybody good? Okay, then first thing is public comments. Anybody from the public want to comment on anything? Seeing or hearing none, move on to the minutes from previous meetings. Anybody have anything there? Comments? Changes? If not, a motion would be in order to approve.
Oh, so moved, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay. Motion and a second to approve the minutes from the previous meetings. Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none. Minutes are approved. Okay, under IT. First is vouchers. Anybody need anything clarified or commented on? No one? Not even Bill? Oh. What's up? What's up with that?
What's up with, I just wanna know what's up with the COVID-19, that's, item number 125. COVID-19, you brought 324.
We have a lot of people that are working from their homes now and teleworking. So what the earbuds are is that allows them through their computer to take and make telephone calls, just like they'd be in the office. So, yep, so it assists our teleworkers with that.
What is, like 130, oh, there's like 3 or 4.
Mhm.
They call them, PZ order ETS.
Yep.
First, second, and third.
Yep, so earlier this year, we placed 3 different orders for the computers and we saw significant delays, and that was before COVID. So what you're seeing is basically 3 orders are kind of they showed up at the same time, so we're being invoiced at the same time.
Oh,
And I'll kind of get into it a little bit later about the PC replacement fund, but that is a significant amount of computers that will be replaced here in 2020 for the various departments. So it's just, it took a very long time to get them in and they all showed up at the same time. So that's why you'll see the first, second,
they're
third
all
order.
together.
They all together, yeah.
What about the annual debt renewal? Zoho Corporation, number 149.
Yep, that is a software program that IT uses in-house. It's our ticketing system. So when people email help desk or call in, we create tickets so that we can track different problems and issues. It also maintains the assets throughout the county. So all the computers and stuff like that, we keep that inventory. That software serves as IT's purchase order system so that anything that's purchased, it goes through that system and it's maintained and documented that way. So that's an annual maintenance we pay for that.
Okay. And the other one is Good Control 154. That's EW Highway Security Upgrade.
Yep, so Edgewater uses, it's an older computer, it's actually Windows 7, which Windows 7 was end of life the end of January. So IT is on a mission to eliminate all Windows 7 machines. Edgewater has a Windows 7 machine that runs their HVAC system. So we're working with maintenance to get that updated. So we're gonna get the system updated so that it's similar to what's here at the courthouse and then eliminate the Windows 7 machine from their location.
Okay. 159, the TF or TCM.
This is probably one of the biggest projects that IT and Human Services has going on this year. We are replacing TCM, which that's the clinical manager, that's the billing software that Human Services uses. So that actually signifies a $331,000 investment the county is making this year to replace TCM. We are moving to Streamline. So those payments are made as that project progresses. So it's probably, we're hoping to have that implemented by January 1st. But as we hit milestones in that project, we pay Streamline as we're moving forward with implementation.
But that's a total of 31.
The total project is $331,000. So this is a
331.
Yeah, so this is a partial payment based on where we're at in that project.
Oh, okay. What does inside public sector upgrade mean?
The video conferencing upgrades,
Yeah,
we are in the process of replacing a lot. Again, it's Windows 7, runs on some of our video conferencing. So those signify we're replacing equipment at the health department. Let's see, where else? The highway.
Human Services has one over at Riverwood.
And then room 317A as well, just recently got replaced. So that's video conference units that are being replaced throughout the county. So that's what those are.
oh, okay. What's that Cisco dual license? Harlan's business, that's 173.
Oh, 173. Okay. Duo is the two-factor authentication that the county is using. Currently, the only department that uses that is the sheriff. It's a requirement coming from the state CJIS policy that we have to have two-factor in the squads. We are in the process of replacing that and then rolling that out countywide for security. So that's a payment for that two-factor software.
Oh, okay. Here's another one for copy report. Here's another one. It's like selector. Item number 184, that suggests new employee PCs.
Yep, so the Human Services has hired a brand new employee. So when they hire people, we purchase those computers separately. So that's why it's not included any like our first, second, or third order. So as new staff come on board, that reflects the payment or the purchase for that person's computer.
Oh, okay. And number 187, that speaker cut bill. First quarter of 2020.
So some departments, we're getting a lot less, but that is one of the print management companies that the county uses. There's only a handful of departments that use that. I believe it's Treasurer, UW Extension. I'm missing one.
Yeah.
Oh, and Child Support. So that is the first quarter billing payment for those departments, for their print
Right
management.
below that, it has a first quarter 2020 bill.
Yep, so Rhyme is the other company, and that's the company a majority of our departments use, and that's Human Services will be moving to Rhyme for their print management. So currently we have 2 print management contracts basically in place for the county. The goal is to get everybody onto Rhyme, but we have to wait for certain contracts to expire in order to do that. So
Oh, okay. Then if I look at pages, I go to 2,000 or 206 greenlight evolutions. That's a TCM revision license.
yep, that is another partial payment of the TCM replacement project for Human Service. So that's another payment that was made.
And there's another one, that 213, that's the city's digital documented management project.
Yep, so that is a project that we are completing with the Sheriff's Department and Jail. That's document management. They currently don't have a very good process, so they're changing solutions. So right now they're scanning and it's just a cumbersome system. So we're working with the jail on moving them into a more robust document management.
Here's another one for Rhyme Business, 218, printer and copier charges.
Yep, so that signifies all of the lease payments. So how the Rhyme is set up is IT pays all the lease payments for all the departments. So that 3471 represents equipment that sits in most of the departments other than a handful of them.
Oh, okay. What is North Harbor? That's 224.
So that is, because we need to have for North Park, as far as the county staff that sit there, we have had a lot of communication challenges at that location so that they can kind of come onto the county network. So this year we had fiber trenched so that they could connect to the county network through fiber. So it's to help North Park staff.
Oh, okay. And last item is phone system upgrade. We just upgraded then you go dispatch 430.
Yep, so the dispatch phones and the county phone systems are separate. So when dispatch upgraded the phones and the money that was spent, that was specific just for dispatch. This upgrade that's currently happening is for the rest of the county.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's all I have.
All right. Anything else, anyone? I don't remember, do we approve the vouchers? Okay, okay, then,
You have to do a motion.
okay. Then a motion would be in order to approve the vouchers,
So moved.
okay? Your second?
Second.
Okay. Motion and a second to approve the vouchers. Those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, the vouchers are approved. Okay, our monthly comments. Anything there? Anything to add, Amy?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I just want to highlight a couple of the projects that we have going on just because they're either countywide or they're significant. The first thing I wanted to mention is just as we move through the COVID, so just wanted everybody to recognize that prior to COVID, telework just really didn't exist on the county network. So really just want to give a lot of kudos to the IT staff. We went from 0 people telecommuting to work to 134 is what we keep. So we had 134 people working from home and able to access county resources remotely. So that was a huge success, but obviously it was a very trying time. We did bring in 2 additional interns just to kind of help with the amount just of resources that we had from IT. So at that time, obviously, kind of supporting people remotely brings its own set of challenges. So trying to do that during a very stressful time where it was really unknown. I just really wanted to give big kudos to the IT department just and staff for how they handled that. It really couldn't have gone any better in our opinion from that transition.
Have you been using VPN?
We
I
have.
assume, has the bandwidth been appropriate to support?
We had issues initially at our Cornerstone location, so we did have to increase the bandwidth there because the biggest problem wasn't so much the VPN, it was everybody was going to video conferencing.
Sure.
So suddenly we started to see that huge increase in bandwidth, and that was something that we had to adjust for, but otherwise, I think our network really handled it very well, so.
Great.
Yeah.
Definitely a challenge.
Yes. So that's, let's see, that's one. The other, I guess the other thing I did want to mention, I kind of answered a little bit about is just the huge TCM project that's going on. So we are replacing TCM for human services. We're moving to smart care. So that's something that's consuming a lot of IT resources as well as human services staff. So as we move towards that, you'll be hearing a lot, you'll be seeing a lot about that project. Again, that one was on IT CIP for $331,000. So we are obviously, it's a large investment. We're really putting a lot of resources into that so that we can get that conversion done properly for their department. So the other thing I wanted to mention is part of looking at our contracts were up for our wide area network and then our phone system. So IT did make a huge change, and I know some of that was seen because we did have issues earlier this year with some of our phones and stuff like that. We did a huge migration away from Solaris and we went to Charter Spectrum. So that was a big project. Took us a little bit longer because we had issues where we couldn't get into Norwood and Edgewater for a couple of weeks because of COVID, so we kind of had to put that project on hold. But I'm happy to say that as of now, all our circuits and all of our phone systems are moved over to our new lines. So we'll be seeing a tremendous cost savings. I'll get into that a little bit later. And also, we increased our speeds. We were kind of ahead of that because we were already planning to increase speed. So I think that helped with some of the transitions of working from home in VPN. The other thing of note is just that IT is putting a lot of resources, obviously, into the WebEx meetings. So we're spending more resources there than we have in the past. Cybersecurity too, you'll hear me talk about this as much as you'll let me. That's been a big thing for us where we do trainings, we do phishing. Last month, we implemented what was called an Albert sensor, and that was in conjunction with the county clerk's office. They were able to help pay for some of that cost. What that Albert sensor does is sits and monitors the county network. So if there's any malicious activity, if there's any compromise, we had it in place for what, like 3 weeks, maybe? Before Jason, who's our network administrator, received the first phone call that we were compromised. So the Albert monitor was able to detect it. It notified us right away. It was cryptocurrency, so it had compromised, got into our network. And just the way that it was able to come in, that would have sat undetected for,
I don't know that we would have detected it running.
yeah, that's how it came in. So, but it was something where we were just very happy that we had that in place. And I know sometimes we look at that, I believe the investment was $11,000 for software. I'd actually have to look it up. I think it's probably $10,000 a year that we pay for that. But in an incredibly short amount of time, I think it really kind of paid for itself already by notifying us of that. Otherwise, county resources would have been used for illegal activity. So it was just nice to have that in place, and we kind of felt like we were one step ahead of what was happening. So,
Quick question. Are we testing on the phishing, and what's our failure rate?
depends on the month. So we do monthly tests on phishing. So it's kind of a requirement to all the departments. So we do that monthly. I think the last month was like 5.6 failure rate of people clicking on it. So
Which
a lot
is
of
pretty high.
it is high. It is high. And we try to do trainings as well. And I think for the most part, we start to see the same people are failing those. So we try to do more.
I see, so what are we
training
doing
and
with the
stuff
ones
like
that are failing?
Right, so we assign additional training, people that continue to fail those phishings. We do have conversations with the department heads and just kind of engage them to really sit down and talk about the fact that it just takes one person for a compromise. And I think with COVID too, we saw a huge increase. I don't know how many security events we had through COVID where it was people were clicking on things. We had one person go as far as to enter their personal information. And it was scary because we were steps away from a compromise. They had given them their network credentials, so we had to work with that individual, get them to change their password. Highly recommend making sure they're doing credit monitoring for themselves just because of all the information they gave them. And the person actually ended up calling the county staff member, so it got that far. So fortunately, I think when they started asking specific questions, that person got a little concerned and then notified IT at that time.
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the Ruth Klein one, there was one you caught, one you didn't catch, and now I have it on mine. Ruth Klein is from Vesper, and I call her every time I get one, and she says, that's not me, and it's not. But I said, I see you catch them, and sometimes you don't.
Well, but what's happening is people are clicking on them. So it's not, when we start to see that come in, and what we typically see is when we're alerted. Sometimes we're alerted from the state. We have different emails and stuff like that we receive from people who are like, hey, this is out there. But what happened is we had staff members click on that. So they clicked on the link, and when they do that, and Jason, I don't know if you want to get into a little bit more about what we do as far as going through and we try to block that. We try to look and see what happens. You want to talk a little bit about because it came through once and we kind of alerted everybody to delete it, and then it came through again. But that was, somebody clicked on it. So, and I think that's when we start talking about cybersecurity and cybersecurity training, there's only so much IT can do. We need people to recognize those so that they're not clicking on them, that they're not opening them. And I think that's what we saw.
Yeah, if it's the one I'm thinking of, it actually came through the network about 4 different times.
Yeah.
And yes, and there were times where it was coming from different people, so there were times where we were able to say, okay, don't accept any emails from this person or that person. But then it would come from someone else or slightly different. So it's kind of trying to find the right keywords, that sort of thing, from blocking it from even getting into our system. Then we have, the network engineer actually goes through and he can run some scripts on our mailbox, that sort of thing, to actually remove the emails once we're alerted to them being in our network. Most of the time we get them beforehand, but every now and again we get someone that's quicker than we are and click on it. Usually what we'll end up doing is we'll run a virus scan on their system, force them to change their passwords on their network account. I believe Amy usually sends out some extra training for them through KnowBe4. And then if it's actually something malicious, we'll usually block some IP addresses. So we have a list of IP addresses of systems that aren't able to get to even our websites anymore because of, and usually those are like Russia, Iran, those sort of things. But then there's our firewalls that will set up blocks so that our people can't go out to these malicious sites once we're made aware of them.
And the reason I ask is I see this as the biggest single financial threat to the county. We just had a county out, it might have been Virginia, I don't remember for sure, through a phishing email, compromised the system, $11 million ransomware request, and they took down over 1,100 county-owned computers that were trashed. So not only the 11 million, the 1,100, plus any data they managed to get into, compromise, or use somewhere else. So that's why I said company I work, we test 2 to 3 times a week, everybody, and a failure rate over 1%, and you're disciplined, and you're terminated at some point.
That is something, and it's interesting because I know in talking to there's a lot of state agencies that do that, where it's actually their security training, as far as being able to pass the email campaigns and the phishing campaigns, is directly tied into their performance employee reports and stuff on how they're doing, just because it's that significant of a risk. So I know a lot of times, for the longest time, it was IT was going to take care of it, IT was going to take care of it. Well, they got smart to that. We have firewalls, we're blocking, we're monitoring for that constantly. So now what they're doing is they're coming through via email and they're trying to get somebody to click on a link, which is much easier because we know if we say, hey, Domino's has a free pizza today, somebody's probably going to click on that.
Your UPS orders being delivered.
Yes.
That's another one you see all the time.
Constantly, we can get them on that.
Amazon has.
And we try. So we really try to educate people that way and get them to understand that no one wants to be the person that causes that. And everybody has a rush day. We're all busy. They have a lot of things going on. And that's where we really try to do training. So fortunately, we have a lot of support from the department heads, a lot of support from staff, as we go through training and try to get people to understand that we're not trying to waste people's time with training. We really want to get people to understand, not just here at work, but in your personal life as well. People are trying to steal your information, and it's now with everything online, it's becoming easier to do. And once they get in your systems, and I know we've seen some cities recently, City of Oshkosh was one of them. It's once they compromise your system, we really need to bring everything down. And I think that's something where we've really been stressing with the departments to talk about, okay, if something happens, like what we had with the Albert sensor, or if we're compromised, we have to bring network resources down to protect ourselves from further damage. So I think that's something where we try to get people to understand that it's significant and there's financial cost, and then it's time to get things back online, which takes a lot of time as well. So
And for our supervisors, the worst place is here. It's pretty easy to look when you're on your computer, but it's pretty easy when you're in between appointments on your car, you see an email, you go, I better open that.
and they try to make it sound urgent,
It's always urgent.
Yes. So that's something, cybersecurity is something we really, I think we've really built a robust cybersecurity program here, just because there are so many threats with that. So we're constantly updating a lot of what you see. It's trying to keep infrastructure updated, trying to keep computers. Right now, it's trying to get rid of all Windows 7 because we know we can't keep them updated. We need to get them off our network. So a lot of our resources go into that. And training is a big part of that, so.
And the COVID thing just made it easier to have more scams out there, I suppose, huh?
Yes, yep, and take advantage of people in stressful times. So all of a sudden, you started to see a lot of places, I'm happy to say that we weren't one of them, where they really started to lax some of their policies and allow people to use anything. You know, Zoom was a big, I know a lot of people use it, people can join them, but we don't allow installations of Zoom on county network, on our network, because of the security risk that it poses. So we saw a lot of people get compromised, a lot of things go public that way. So I think what you start to see in times like that, when you have like a changing workforce, a lot of places were opening up their security and loosening it up so that people could remote in to make that easy. And when you do that, that allows for bad actors and people to take advantage of lessening security. So fortunately, we were able to keep our security where it's always been. And I think in some ways increase it a little bit as well, so.
Is WebEx better than Zoom right now?
Yes.
Good.
Yep, and the advantage too, because I know you'll hear it, because I know it's one of those things, as we looked at it, we looked at Zoom, we looked at WebEx, many different versions of WebEx, forget what else we looked at, it seems like we looked at every product. WebEx is a true HIPAA compliant solution, which we need for our human services and health departments. So that's something that Zoom isn't able to offer without a really high monthly cost associated with that. So because we do deal with so many diverse departments, we want to find a solution that works for everybody. So, and the HIPAA was the big component with that, with WebEx, so.
Good question. So on this
You're right.
WebEx, could other departments subscribe to it and offer it? I mean, you subscribe to WebEx, right?
Yep.
Can somebody else get a license in the courthouse and do it also?
There are several departments that have them. So Human Services has several licenses themselves of WebEx that they have. Our HR department has a WebEx license. So we do offer that up and we shared that information with all departments on what that would cost. Smaller departments can check out IT's license. So we have a license that if it's not in use, we welcome anybody to use that. So, and that's the one that's being used for all the meetings and stuff, is we use the one that IT pays for.
Good.
Yeah. Because the other, a couple more. The other thing I mentioned was just that multi-factor authentication software Duo that's going to be rolled out. So that is going countywide for all the departments. So that's a project you'll hear more about. The biggest project on the network side is the upgrade to our call manager software. That's basically our entire voice over IP system that we're doing. So we're upgrading. We have to have all the phones up to a certain standard of phone, and then it's going to be the hardware and software on that voice over IP system will be upgraded. So, and then again, I just wanted to highlight that we are in the process of getting rid of all Windows 7 machines. So last month, 108 new devices were imaged and 90 of those were placed. So I believe we have about 40 computers left that have Windows 7. Some of that is because we've allowed people to be able to telework, to use some older devices just so that they could telework and work from home, and they VPN into the system. So that's why we have some of them out there. So it's kind of a highlight. We have a lot going on, and you'll find that's kind of consistent. There's typically several projects that are going on in IT. So any questions on any of that?
Anybody? Good presentation, Amy. Brought me up to speed anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Department overview, where's that?
Okay, so that's me. So I'm going to try to make this brief if I can, but I wanted to just kind of go over, and I think Lisa's going to put it up on the screen there. So I just kind of wanted to go over the IT department. I don't know if you want to get that extra. Would you like? Yep. That's okay. So you hear a lot about IT and you hear a lot about what we do, and I just kind of wanted to give a high-level overview of our department. So Lisa, if you could advance the slide, please. So I just kind of wanted to talk today about information technology, our budgets, what we support, the services we provide, and then just some current projects that we have going on. So just looking at the history here, I'll kind of let you read it, so I'm not gonna kind of go through everything, but just wanted to kind of give you the history of the IT department and kind of how it's evolved. I think most recently, we've had a lot of changes where we were able to move. We have an updated data center now. We've really built a lot of the infrastructure that's in. We do have an internship program, so we've partnered with Midstate. We currently have 2 interns, and we try to always have 1 or 2 interns on staff, and we kind of work with Midstate mainly on that. So we're happy to be a part of that. It helps the county out a lot. Kind of from 2017 to present, that's where we were able to move all into 1 location. Prior to that, IT was split into 3 different areas throughout the courthouse, so it's been a huge advantage to having this all in 1 place. We have 13 staff members. Again, 2 of those are interns, so we have 11 total staff on IT that are full-time. We do have an amazing data center. I think in terms of the redundancy that's built in there and the server infrastructure we have in place, it's something I think the entire IT department is very proud of. We worked very hard to have that in place so that we can keep our systems online. And then again, it's the countywide cybersecurity training program. So that's something that we put a lot of resources into and have made significant progress. This next slide is just the organizational chart. So Jason DeMarco is here. He is the network administrator. He's the other manager in the IT department. We currently have a vacancy with our network analyst, but then he oversees the PC technicians and the interns. We also have Lisa. I think most of you know her. She does the phone and application support. And then we do have 4 programmer analysts within our department.
Mr. Chair, just one question. How do you advertise for new people? I mean, what routes people do?
Sure. Well, the HR department does a lot as far as getting it out and putting it on LinkedIn and I think a lot of the different forums there. We also reach out on LinkedIn, and then we also have a GIPA forum, so that's kind of like the statewide IT where we advertise there as well.
And you basically have a list of what they're qualified or trained in or
Yes.
so forth. And
Yep.
then you interview whoever.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, thank
So
you.
we actually, we have 4 interviews scheduled for tomorrow. We'll be sitting in on those. So we interview on the network side just because of the technical skills. There's also tests that are administered because we want to make sure they have a certain level of knowledge when they come into those network positions.
Okay, thank you.
So the
Anything
next,
else?
the next item is budgets. The IT department maintains 3 different budgets. Actually, pass this out as well. It's kind of hard if you guys all spread out there.
Yes. Put it on.
We're all this way. And I just wanted to highlight this because we have our main budget, which you'll see, which for 2020 is $1.8 million. That handles all of the salaries, a lot of maintenance agreements for multiple departments, and just what it costs to run the IT department. Our second budget is our voice over IP budget. So that budget maintains the infrastructure for the phones. So that's the servers, connections to our various locations. And then it also takes care of replacing phones themselves. So when those phones need to be replaced, that comes out of the voice over IP. We do charge departments a monthly rate for phones to cover those fees. The last budget we maintain is the IT PC replacement. So this one, the best way to explain it is it's an escrow. So what IT does to help budgets maintain or departments maintain even budgets is we basically escrow. So every computer, every county device is on typically a 5-year replacement, except for our dispatch computers are on a 3-year replacement. So we basically charge that department every year, the percentage needed, so that when that machine is due for replacement, it's the PC replacement that covers that. So when you see in here, as far as, you're looking at PC replacement, first order, second order, third order, that money has been escrowed. So basically, that's what that account is. So that's any questions on the budgets that IT has?
Anybody? No?
No. Right, so going on to what we support and the people that we support. Again, there's just a nice little slide on here, departments, which you can pretty much guess every county department. But we also, because we have a countywide law enforcement software, we also provide some level of support to different municipalities as well. And the cities, when you look at our treasurer's GCS software package, that's something that our cities connect and use as well.
So about highway, I see there's nothing under highway. You get involved with them, or is that separate?
Oh, no, highway we do, yep.
Okay.
It's just, on the other departments we're looking at, they have a lot of different kind of subunits underneath them, so yeah, no, highway, we definitely support them. The next gives kind of our network locations, and there's probably, it looks a little bit busy, but this is kind of how everybody is connected. So this is basically the nervous system of the county network here, and it just shows how we connect our facilities. So our infrastructure does run on a microwave, so we do use a microwave connection that goes from here to the north end for phone and data communications, and then we also utilize backup links so that we have redundancy built in. A lot of our squad vehicles they use VPN over a cellular connection, and that's how they're connected back into the county. And as you can see, we have connections to Grand Rapids PD, Port Edwards, Nakusa, and the cities. So you can kind of see they are connected to our network to be able to come back for law enforcement software.
And Norwood's working fine now?
Yes.
Good.
Yep.
I know that was a struggle for a while there.
Yes.
Good.
Yep. In Norwood, we've actually put a lot of infrastructure because we're actually utilizing that. IT used to use the highway department a lot more for like our backup locations for phone systems. But we have since built out in an area at Norwood, just because it's a little further away physically. So we have, as far as backup phone and email, we'll be going in that location, so. Any questions on that?
Anyone?
Yeah, who drew the map?
Who drew that? It's probably been revised, yeah.
It's not exactly where those are, but.
No, it is not to scale, and it's not. Yeah. So the other thing, just to kind of give you an idea of what we support, and I want to get into when you look at as far as IT budgets, and that's something where I like to call it an investment, but it pretty much always increases, but it's really a reflection of what we support from the other departments. So currently we support about 650 computers, 150 print managed devices, so that's when you get into the E.O. Johnson and Bryan contracts that we have. We have 30 iPads, 750 phones, because while we don't support the state departments like DA and clerk of courts, we still provide them phones, so we support phones in those areas. About 140 cellular devices. We have 120 wireless access points throughout the county, and 125 network routers and switches, and 210 servers. And that just shows just the different amount of systems and programs that are used by our departments. And then when we look at software systems, main software programs, we have about 150 of those. So when you think of that in terms of keeping that infrastructure up to date and connected, that's where a lot of our resources go. Providing services. Here we just get into as far as user support. So we do a lot with maintaining just account creations. So I think one thing we've seen increase a lot over the last couple of years is just, we see a lot more staff leaving. So when we look at retention, When we have new employees coming on board and leaving frequently, that impacts IT a lot because we have to set up new accounts. Security is a big thing. So that's something we've seen an increase in, is just our user support services and just handling kind of an ever-changing workforce. So we do a lot. We do the orientation and training, phone builds. We do have computer checkout. So if somebody needs to use a laptop or just some different devices, conference phones, they are able to get that from IT. So they don't have to have that equipment. And then video conferencing support. The network support services, we provide 24/7 support to all of our locations. So that's something, we're here full-time, but then also if something occurs in the middle of the night or on weekends, holidays, we do have an on-call rotation that goes through our department. So somebody is always available, and we typically have 2 people available just because of the infrastructure we support.
And then, where and how do we provide backup to our servers here? Do we have offsite servers, or are we running on cloud, what are we doing?
We actually, that's what we're building out at Norwood. So a lot of it, when we look at our email servers, we have email servers at Norwood, and phone systems at Norwood as well. So if something were to happen here. And that's something we're working on more and kind of building that infrastructure so that we are able to come up. The plan is basically if something were to happen, we're taking backup and we're bringing that up at our Norwood location. Security mitigation is a big part. It's just monitoring, patching, updating servers, communication systems, phones, video conferencing, email, wireless access devices, backup and recovery, and then that business continuity piece. So we're really putting a lot into that because I think we look at it, it's not a matter of if, it's when we're going to have an issue. So we want to make sure that we have the infrastructure to bring things back up as quickly as possible. Application services. As I mentioned, we have 4 programmers in-house. They do a lot more than programming. Work a lot with the departments when it comes to supporting the different software platforms. They do build customs. They are programming, training and user support. They do a lot of software vendor liaison. So if there's updates that need to happen, if they assist the various departments with that. They do a lot of project management and then business analysis. So if there's needs and stuff like that.
Do you store any public documents on the server, like for the register of deeds and things like that?
Yes.
Those are stored electronically?
They are, yes.
Is server space been an issue yet?
Well, funny you should mention that, because in a CIP request that will be coming up later, we are actually looking to increase our storage. So
Okay,
really, a majority of our storage is used up by the Sheriff's Department, as you can imagine, with their video cams and body cams and stuff like that. So that's a lot of it. But yeah, so we're constantly adding to that, and we have a request to add a lot more storage for that, just so that we have that. Files are getting larger across the board, so we always try to make sure we're ahead of that.
so our past documents from pre-computer era, are those also stored online, or is that?
Some of them.
Some of them are.
We've archived a lot of stuff and digitized it, I guess.
Yeah.
But there's some of the old stuff that still is not done yet.
Okay, and that's, I assume, like an ongoing project, or?
I think for departments it is. I don't register.
Record deeds is pretty much done. Treasurer's office.
Could
No.
go
Those
forever.
goals, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Yep.
thank you.
And then just projects, again, just wanted to kind of go through some of our most recent past projects. Looking at the move from Solaris to Spectrum. And that's something I just want to touch base on because I think that, I think this is a very big success story for IT when you look at, IT is constantly looking at ways that we can save money and reduce costs, even though it doesn't always reflect that in our budget. So this is a project we completed, actually just finished a couple weeks ago as far as moving to Spectrum. So here I'm just kind of giving a layout of our different facilities and how we're connected. These are monthly costs. So making the move from Solaris to Spectrum on our WAN, so that would be the wide area network. So to be able to connect the systems, we are looking at a yearly savings of $27,900. phone system change will result in a minimum savings of $18,611 a year. So then there's some additional savings on the long distance that departments will be recognizing as well. So now that we have it in place, beginning next year, we're going to be looking at saving a grand total of $50,760. So that's kind of why we did that, and I think it's just a good example of how we do constantly look for ways to kind of reduce price, reduce the cost, and still provide the same services. So that was, I think, probably by far biggest project so far this year was that.
Or a lot of hours put into it.
That, yes. Yeah, a lot of after hours, a lot of weekend work on that.
So from an outsider perspective, at least in the last few years, it seems like the phone system has been going down a lot. Do you think that this is going to be an improvement for that? Just from like I get all the Nixle emails that are, you know.
Sure, and I don't want to confuse as far as dispatch phone system with the county phone system.
Okay.
So I know a lot of times when Nixles go out, or if there's issues that are happening, you know, I think a lot of time, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of it is, we have an integration that integrates dispatch with the county phone system, so they can still, you know, transfer and port it into a dial and just kind of be a part of that.
Mhm.
And sometimes I know that's been an issue where we
Okay.
kind of had that issue. The county phone system, I will say this year, probably a lot more frequently because we're making changes. So we're bringing it down, we're changing providers, and then as we do that, we get caught in the hole. No, it's their problem, it's your problem. It's like, we just need it fixed and the phone system to come back up. So I think we've done a lot to put things in place that hopefully will help alleviate some of that. I know we're working on a lot more redundancy. I think, you know, the couple of times I'm thinking of issues with Norwood, is that Frontier?
Yeah.
That they were very difficult to work with. So, you know, we'd have it where we would try to get a hold of them, and I think it's a lot, we see that in spring because some of that copper and fiber, like water gets in there, and then we start to have issues. So that was one where we struggled with that a lot with Norwood this year. And so those issues shouldn't happen anymore because we've moved away from Frontier. So we're not gonna have that issue. So some of that will, but with everything, with every system, there's always gonna be, you know, some issue, but we're hoping that we built a lot more redundancy in with it. One of the main, I guess, positives with the phone system change that we've made is in the past, if something were to go down here, you know, then people would notice that. Now we actually have Norwood and the courthouse working together. So if something fails there, it all routes here and people don't even notice it and vice versa. So we built a lot more redundancy in because of the technology we're using is a little bit differently. So we're hoping to not see as many issues. But yeah, that's one where everybody sees it when there's an issue. So. But we're hoping to have reduced that based on some of the things that we put in place here.
Frontier's into bankruptcy, so they're not gonna improve anything anymore.
No, and getting a hold of them was very
terrible.
difficult.
Yeah,
Yeah, and trying to
internet.
explain,
Yeah.
that
We're
we're,
Frontier Internet, because that's the only one we can get. They're
Yeah.
just terrible.
Yeah.
Just don't care.
no, and we found that out, and it's hard when you're saying we are calling because this is Norwood is down and their phones are down and trying to get them to understand that and just the frustration of the on-call staff. I think there probably was 4 different people from IT calling them one weekend, like, we need to get this resolved because it's Norwood. But yeah, no, you could tell they were definitely not interested in customer service, so. So the countywide self-service and project manager system, a lot of things IT does, we're trying to create more transparency. So a lot of the projects, and I forget the number of projects we have out there, it's typically about 150 to 200 projects, just requests coming in from different departments. So we kind of have a developed project management system so that people can go in, see their projects, department heads can actually prioritize those for IT, so they can let us know what they'd like us to work on first as we try to manage that. So we've tried to give department heads a little bit more input into what's being worked on and kind of let us know, because as you can imagine, we're getting departments requests from all over. So it's basically, let us know what you want us to work on first, and we'll do that. We can kind of, when we can get to it with our resources. So social media policy, that's been a big one where we do manage different Facebook accounts with departments and stuff like that. So we have completed that project. Countywide email system upgrade, that was done last year. So we did upgrade all of our servers and the infrastructure. That again was a big investment for the county. That was done last year. Questica budgeting software, it's another big project we worked on. As you'll see, we're working right now with finance on the payroll portion of that, so that's kind of an ongoing project too. We replaced a lot of the network equipment at the Wood County Annex and Health Center, and then Marshville City Hall Plaza. I think one of the things too, just in conjunction with maintenance, a lot of what IT has been able to do with them is standardizing camera, HVAC, and card systems throughout the county locations. So we're really trying to get that uniform systems, whether it's here at the courthouse or at Norwood or Edgewater. So that's something we've had a lot of really good success with that we've been working on. And then there's just been a lot of county departments moving, so that's something where IT is always involved.
Is the Marshville City Hall, the project, is that still ongoing or is that pretty much complete?
That's complete as far as with their move-in, yep, and then I think it was just, we had to replace some of the network equipment and stuff like
No,
that, so
okay,
that was something done recently where we upgraded some of the hardware there.
good.
I suggest, you know, since you're on the property, it makes me nice to have a meeting up there. It's really unique how they remodel that and stuff like that.
Good suggestion, yeah, we should take a look at it. It was 2 years since I was on the other property committee, and there's a lot of work's been done since then, I'm sure. In fact, that was just the start of it then. So, everything's, must be going okay because I haven't heard anything, so.
It's nice having Cornerstone in City Hall,
Yeah.
so that kind of, we eliminated one more network location, which is nice, because then we can kind of put our resources there. So it makes it easier and it's a little bit cheaper when we have it that way, so we don't have an extra connection, so.
Were a lot of the basics there from before, or not, as far as, towers and receiving equipment, or was it all new?
Well, I think we moved most of it over.
Yeah, so the backbone was there already,
Okay. That's what I thought.
the microwave connections, it didn't used to have a backup connection to, the city hall location, actually, with, adding those Charter Spectrum. We put a backup connection in the Marshfield City Hall location. What we had done, we kind of held off on replacing the network equipment. It was actually, should have been replaced a few years ago, but waiting to see what was gonna happen with the locations up there, whether there was gonna be another location or another building put on Norwood's property or
Yeah,
what. We kind of held off on replacing our network, so once we entered into the contracts at Marshfield City Hall, we decided it was time to replace our network equipment there, so that's pretty much why we did it, when we did it.
good. Seemed like it turned out very well considering the
Yes,
rough start, because that building was for sale a couple different times, declared sold and then unsold, and
yeah,
it's,
yeah, we were watching that, just trying to figure out kind of, what our next steps
Yeah.
were. and what
But it was a county courthouse.
Yeah.
yeah, right, yeah, that's right, part of it was, yeah. Good,
And then the last slide is just our current and ongoing projects. So I think a lot of them I kind of talked about already, cybersecurity testing and training, that's gonna be ongoing. That's something that goes across all departments, the Windows 7 to Windows 10. Phone system, video conferencing, the two-factor business continuity, the TCM, so the human services, the electronic health record, the EHR, that's that TCM to streamline project that we're working on. Printer management will have later this year, what we're actually going to be migrating human services over from their current, which is Bauerfein, printer management contract onto the RIME contract, so we're working with their department to do that. We have a law enforcement software, which is the CIS application, has a mandatory change to the incident-based reporting, so that's something that we are currently working with the Sheriff's Department, all law enforcement agencies to move over to the incident-based. COVID-19, obviously that's taken a lot of our time up and resources. And then we are looking at a network refresh at Edgewater and the municipalities as well, so replacing some network equipment there. So I know it's a lot of information, but I'm hoping you take this home and just kind of understand as far as just some of the services we provide. So IT really exists everywhere, and this just kind of gives you an idea of just some of the budget and some of the infrastructure that we support on a daily basis.
Al, I would suggest that this be part of the county board packet, because there's a lot of information here.
there is, yeah.
Great, and I think, and then if anybody has any questions at the county board, they come up with them, so
Yeah.
I'd like to see this put in the packet.
Good job, Amy, very informative for me, anyway. Good. Okay, as far as the CIP,
So I know I sent everything, I sent the CIP, kind of wanted to go through, a lot of paperwork, I should email this next time. So I created packets, and this is so we had an update, so we had one change, so I'll make this one. I don't know how many I have of these, so here's the CIP. And then we did have one modification come in Friday, so that's gonna be an update.
okay?
Thank you.
And the computerized, is there gonna be any paper in there?
That pays my retirement.
Yeah, it keeps the fun going, doesn't it?
This is an update sheet. This is an updated sheet.
I think toilet paper was a shortage.
Yeah, yeah.
And what we have for you guys to share.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Okay, so before I get into the 2021 CIP request, I wanted to show you their current request for 2020, just so that you can kind of understand what's normal for IT CIP. So the first page is our 2020 CIP. So this is what was approved for the IT department this year. And you can kind of look at the various different projects that we have going on. The one I mentioned earlier was the Human Services Billing Software. That one was the $331,000. We also have all 3 courtrooms. Their video conferencing is being upgraded. It's $128,900. Our business continuity that we had talked about, $112,000. That is where we're looking to build out more at Norwood and put in infrastructure there, just in case something happens here for business continuity. And then the document management for human services. So we had talked about moving the jail over to Laserfiche. We are also moving human services off of their current solution to Laserfiche. Again, our goal ultimately is to have one software package that's used between as many departments as possible. We know there's always going to be some department with a unique circumstance, like our register of deeds. You know, they have a very specific document program that they're going to use, and they'll continue to do that. But we're trying to migrate the rest over. A couple other things: video conferencing upgrades. We have a security appliance that we're looking to upgrade as well. So these are current 2020 projects that we have going on. Then on the next page, highlights 2021, and I'll say it goes out over the next 5 years, but really I put a lot of emphasis on the following year because so much changes in a year and a half as far as what departments need and what needs the various department has. So I kind of put it in there just to show you the stuff I know that's coming in 2022 through 2025. The main part here is the 2021. And do you have any questions on any of the requests that are coming from IT?
What's the difference between the second one you give us
Yep.
and then this one? I
So,
don't see anything different.
yep, so the big change is for the Human Services Smart Care modules for EHR. So late Friday, I received an update from Human Services staff. They're looking to remove one of the modules. They do not want to implement it in 2021. So that went from the initial cost was the $103,899, and that went down to $85,799.
Okay.
So instead of $664,799,
Yeah.
it's $646,699. Yeah, and that was at a request. They decided that they wanted to hold that module off until 2022.
Can you explain what the difference is between server infrastructure and county storage infrastructure?
So the storage is just hard drive space. So when we look at, we have, I guess, hardware, we put hard drives in, so we're looking at expanding that. As far as the servers themselves, that's hardware that supports our server environment.
Okay,
So separate from hard drive storage that's used.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Amy, well, just on 2021, I see you got two that are urgent, but the rest of them, if it came to that, is there anything there that you could cut back on, or is it too early to really tell that? I mean, that could be a real good year for anybody's budgets, but,
Sure.
or maybe you aren't prepared to answer that.
No, I can, I'm kind of looking through, and I think a lot of it is just, I try to be honest with, you know, what the requests are. So there's some that it's, when I say it's urgent, it's something that we definitely need to do. When I look at, and I think I identified, you know, as far as the county data storage is necessary, you know, I think that's something, we know it's gonna be needed. You know, we know departments are gonna increase their storage, and it's something that if we don't do now, we might end up paying for later. So I think it's something where, you know, I do believe that's necessary for the departments that we implement that. I think on the human services modules, I put desirable because I think that's one where it's not something that they need, but it's something that's gonna create efficiencies and save money in their department. So when I put that on there where it's not critical, it's not something we have to spend money on, but I think there's gonna be a cost savings in their department if we do put those modules in there. Video conferencing upgrades is another one I'll kind of highlight. I have that in there as necessary, but we are actually at a point, and I tried to add the details, that what we currently pay for maintenance for our current video conferencing units is not that much different than what it would cost to replace a unit. So if we actually did this video conferencing upgrade, it's looking for $18,500. We'd be replacing 3 units. We'd be replacing a unit at City Hall Plaza for Human Services, Norwood, and then the jail video conferencing unit. And we'd also be adding an additional unit to the jail because they have a request for one and have a need there. But if we did that project, you'll actually see, even with the addition of another video conferencing unit in the jail, you'd see a decrease ongoing of $6,557 in IT because the return on investment is so quick. Because we'd be saving so much on what we pay on maintenance with this new technology that it kind of pays for itself in a really short time. So is it urgent? No, but I think it's necessary just because there's a saving. So I think that's kind of how I look at the different categories.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Looks like there isn't any fat for us.
I don't ask for what I don't need.
No, I know that.
I don't.
Good. Anybody have anything else? Anything else?
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. We don't have to approve this at this point, do we? Amy?
For CIP, I was gonna say, I think you need to.
Do we?
Make
Okay.
a motion to approve.
Okay. Okay, there's a motion to approve the CIP. For a second? Anybody?
Well, I just have a question here, Mr. Chair. Are we making the decision, or is this going to the operations committee? Where
Ultimately,
it's
yes,
going, isn't it?
yes.
Just
Hey, wait, look for a second, I mean, I'll second the motion.
Okay.
Pass it on.
Okay, motion and a second to approve the CIP. Those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that motion is approved. Okay, Ruben,
Yes, sir.
you're up. Look at the, hopefully everybody looked at the vouchers report. Any questions on any of Ruben's report? Bill, nothing?
Well, Because I see that they're doing good.
Don't beg them.
Otherwise, he'll bounce back otherwise anyway, so. I get it out of the way.
I don't want to get out of right away. I see you do business on Clover, they're out of county. I just wanted to run the by up. Then selling supply starts with $2.95. Goes to $2.99. It's about $4,000 worth. Are you willing to outdo the departments that use it?
Mostly, yes. So the shilling supply charges, we tackle that first. A lot of that because purchasing routes through our department, some of that will be for other departments initially, some of it will be supplies that we will then keep in our warehouse or our stockroom essentially, and when departments need it, they call and they reimburse us for that expense.
The thing is that your department, I see where you're being for the outdoor lights, the gas service, or something else. They'll be by the maintenance department. Shouldn't that be paid by the sheriff's department?
Not necessarily, no, because maintenance department oversees those facilities, and so the rent that's charged to those departments that occupy the facilities covers the utility expenses for electrical, for water, for gas.
Oh, okay. The same with the DA's remodel. I see where you're billing that to the maintenance department. Shouldn't they be billed to the DA's remodeling?
What page and number is that on?
411 and 412. Our check number.
So the remodeling that we're doing on third floor is something that I budgeted last year to meet the changing needs of the DA's office. And that's been common, that the maintenance department and facilities that we oversee will plan remodeling projects, budget for them, and pay those bills when they come in.
So you're doing bill to the maintenance department?
This is the vouchers for the maintenance department, yes.
Okay. And I see you have two different cable trees. One that's check number 420 and 424 and 464.
Yes, so there are multiple purchases, marked cable tray as a project that we're doing this year, a cable tray project, so that involves installing cable tray along the ceilings in the main hallways. And along with that, we are also putting in new suspended ceilings, new LED lighting, so there will be a couple of different vendors used to complete that project.
Will that all go to the DA remodeling?
No, that's a general upgrade that we've been talking about for a couple of years, working with IT on having cable trays in place for low voltage cabling in the future. The other option we have is running cabling above plaster ceilings and through pathways that are not recommended. So this makes it more accessible, easier for us to maintain and upgrade in the future.
Okay. That's all I have.
All right.
Can I ask a question on 16, page 16? It's number 436. That's for the 12th Street property, correct?
Yes.
Is that a monthly bill?
Yes, that is monthly.
And do you know anything about the sale of that, or?
I haven't heard anything. It seems like it's pretty stale as far as any interest or anybody looking at it.
So who do they come to now that you don't have an executive committee? That's this committee with that sale of that property?
That's a good
Well, it was supposed to be. That's what the move was, is for that, and I see Lance isn't here, but, we have a realtor assigned to that. And then for
No, just
37,
a minute, Bill, I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. I wanted to touch on going back to try and get rid of some of these properties. I think we sold a couple and then we kind of went
yeah,
stagnant.
yeah,
And, I had a note here to, I had talked to Jason Grunenberg about getting that list up again. When Justin was there, he created a list, there was like 154 properties. And Ruben and I talked a little bit about that too at one point. And Jason said he was gonna try to get some time to bring that list back up and go through it and pick through the ones that we should be trying to sell. And especially want to get rid of that one, the old sheriff's department property across from the highway department.
yeah, we still got 17th Avenue, yeah.
That, yep. So there's a couple big ones that I'd like to get rid of.
I mean, we're just paying for them.
Oh,
You know what
yeah,
I mean? We're paying the maintenance,
oh, yeah.
we're paying for people to work, yeah.
Yeah, that's what, $400 some a month just for nothing, just sitting there. So, hopefully we can get going on that. Yeah, I asked Jason to get back to me, we can come up with something, so maybe at a future meeting, we can, try to nail some things down. And, we got a realtor involved, did you say at some point?
Oh, yes, Mike starts with the S,
Springer.
pardon?
Springer.
Mike
Oh,
Spranger.
okay,
Mike Spranger. And when it was left at the executive committee, there was 3 of us that were on there, if I'm wrong, you know, but what it was is, we were gonna rent that out.
yeah.
We're not, in my opinion, we're not in the rental business.
No.
We're not in the rental business.
I don't know to, we should, negotiate with a realtor on all the available properties.
Yes,
I think.
yes.
And maybe make it a special rate or something, just make everything available. Because I'd like to dump a bunch of those. We keep spending money in building and remodeling and got all these properties sitting there, including the one across the street. That's kind of stagnant now too, I guess.
Well, we had at one time, we had somebody that's on the county board doing the wheeling and dealing, and I didn't think that was right,
No,
so.
no, and, Lance being a realtor has his finger on the pulse of everything, but it's not right to drag him into it either,
Right.
So anyway, sorry to interrupt, I want to.
No, and then on 437, that bill of $214, what is that, the joint use for SBC?
The joint use is a location that is a garage or a storage building that also houses rescue, some of their equipment, a meeting room that they have, and emergency management has some storage in that, so it's a
Oh,
joint use building, that's the location.
okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Anything else, anyone? If not, I guess we need a motion to approve.
So,
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion and a second to approve the vouchers. Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, then, department overview, I guess, Ruben, you wanna take that?
Absolutely. And if there's any other questions, Madam Chair, on my report, by all means, just jump in and let me know.
Lisa has it up on the board.
So this is something that I put in your packet for everybody to review, again, in case there's any questions that you guys would think of over the weekend.
Sure.
Similar to IT, just to kind of give this group, just that high-level view of what we do. I'm not sure if anybody read it prior to the meeting. I'll say less and less, the more you guys tell me that you read it and have questions, that's even better, so. I've been told that really when I give an overview or answer questions about the maintenance department, my answer should always be 1956.
Yeah.
That should be my answer, because that's the year that the courthouse was, built. The heart of the courthouse, the building that we're in right now. There were a few additions. We added on to the north side in the late seventies and then added on to the jail in the late eighties. So that's what we have primarily for this location. And other buildings across the river, we have our new River Block office building that was built in 1980 and 81. And also, you'll see on the map that I put in there, we have Edgewater, which there's many different years there. I think the oldest section left is 1951, and up at Norwood, primarily 1972 or roughly early 70s. So just as we talk about the maintenance department, for you guys to have the knowledge of the age of our buildings, and just, I guess, think about that for a moment. The main locations that we're talking about are nearly 400,000 square feet. So if you divide that out and think about if you had that many homes to cover that many square feet, and they were that old, think about some of the issues that we have, and it won't be surprising to know that there's a lot of upkeep. Nothing's getting any newer until we remodel it. And when we look at some of the things that we've done recently, there's a lot of stuff. If you just look at the departments that have been touched in the last 4 or 5 years for remodeling or relocating, there's a lot of them listed there. Some of the bigger things, I guess, that are big accomplishments starting 4 or 5 years ago. Some of you may remember we had a failure of our main generator here at the courthouse. And that was when I first started here and found that we had some issues with our generator that sits above the jail garage or the jail sally port. So we had a company come in and do a rebuild on that generator. Any gasket, hose, seal, anything that could be replaced and ordered was done. We've now been checking that generator weekly, doing an annual load bank test, and keeping that up to date so that we don't have the same issue of the generator failing. That's a bad deal. The entire jail is powered by that generator if there's an outage, along with our dispatch center, the data center, and maybe 50% of the courthouse. That's an important generator. So we're keeping that up to date. There are plans to add a secondary, smaller generator up on the roof that runs on a different fuel source. So when IT talks about redundancy, we try to do some of the same things for our facilities, just in that if we have a failure, there is something for a backup. Until we have that one in place, we are also working on a portable generator. I was able to acquire through military surplus at no charge, roughly 35-year-old diesel generator that's portable, that has been pretty much overhauled by the highway department. They're one of the departments that would be able to utilize that unit if they have a power outage there. We would also be able to pull it here to the courthouse and jail. We'd be able to use it at Norwood or at River Block or Edgewater if there's an outage. So we're working on some good options. They're in the works. It's taking a while to feel like we're getting caught up. There's a lot to think about when we get into our facilities.
Will that portable generator power the whole courthouse?
The portable that we have that we're working on,
Yeah.
it would not.
Oh, I don't
We
think so.
probably would be able to run all of the important devices in the jail. We wouldn't be able to run air conditioning, but we'd be able to run the air handlers and our boiler there. We'd be very limited.
Okay.
But that would be just kind of in a really big bind if we needed to keep the lights on, basically.
Mhm.
For emergencies, we should be able to keep our lights on and hopefully power the data center and dispatch off of that. No air conditioning.
Mhm.
But again, that's a second backup. So our primary backup does enough that we can get by for a longer period of time on that.
Now, a couple of years ago, when we were talking about that, there was a plan of just the vital departments. That's, looks like where you're going with that, so good.
Yeah, right around that same time when we were looking at our generator, we were having some other fluctuations of voltage in our building.
Yeah.
And we found that we were getting power from some of the original transformers that were put in the building in 1956.
Mm-hmm.
And so the expected life of transformers today is 20 to 30 years. And those were well over 40 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, they were located inside the building. That's not common anymore. Those were owned by the county. So if we had an issue with our high voltage transformers, the power company wouldn't touch them. They tell us, you own them, you're on your own, go find replacements. And it would probably be weeks until we'd be able to have any on hand. And so we relocated our transformers from the lower level of the courthouse, and we also had one on the roof. We moved them now on the south side of our property. You guys would probably remember seeing up there, we have a large retaining wall and we have transformers housed outside. They're accessible by the utility company. They are owned by the utility company. So if there's a problem, they have extra transformers in their yard in town ready to put in, and we'd be up and running in a few hours versus a few weeks. The other advantage to moving them outside the building is that if we do, we talk about arc flash studies and high voltage risk in our building. We used to have several thousand volts coming into our building within the walls. Now that's all outside. So now we have 208 volt 3-phase as our electrical system in the building. We have a much lower arc flash risk. We're much safer in the building, and we have new transformers, so we don't have the same voltage fluctuations that we used to see. So a lot of big things, and on some levels it seems pretty simple. Oh, you just replace transformers. That was a big project.
Yeah, oh yeah, the way it was. Were those old ones actually physically removed?
They were.
Okay, good. Good. That was a very important project, I think.
Yes. Any questions, really? I was hoping that just a few slides I put together would kind of spark some discussion. If you guys have questions, anything, I may not have all the answers. I've only been here 5 or 6 years, but I'm learning a lot. Every day that I'm here, I realize we have more work to do. But again, I'm here for discussion with this group, with this committee.
I think more improvement was done in those 5 or 6 years than was done 20 years before that. Especially that generator, that really bothered me. It just sat there and never got exercise. When we needed it, it didn't kick in. So that was really an important project.
I have a couple of questions on your report.
There you go.
And so River Block buildings windows, is that something going to be in your CIP about replacing them? I mean, they're costing us money the way they are now. So maybe, there could be some discussion on that. And the electricity, is that all done with, since we had that outage at the River Block building, is that all done and kind of, can you come out with a report, or maybe you have, in which, what that cost us and what the insurance covered for that?
I can certainly dig more of that up. I think that probably was information that came to, at the time, the executive committee over the span of a few months, because we did talk a lot about that, and I want to say our final cost, initially I was thinking we were around 80,000 or a little more. I think we ended up a little over 100 by the time we found everything that was damaged, and that it didn't include just the building components, but some of the PC equipment, copiers, that type of thing. That is pretty much completed, I would say, except that I have one more item that I'll be submitting. I talked to our insurance specialist that we have, the safety and risk specialist, because we had a failure of one of our large UPSs that runs emergency lighting there. Since we don't have a generator sitting there on the property as a standby ready to go, we have a large UPS. And we had some issues with that recently that I think probably stemmed from that power surge last year. I don't know whether or not we'll be able to provide enough evidence to get that covered by insurance. Regardless, we're fixing that and replacing it. But we pretty much have all that done. We had issues with our fire alarm, with our HVAC panels. We have a lot of issues there, and everything has been up and running for quite some time now.
So it was always said whenever the River Block went down, because that's consolidated water and power, that they could bring up a generator and hook it in, but that don't happen, does it?
It does not happen, and that was part of our discussions, and I don't remember.
Yeah, we talked about that quite a bit, yeah.
So one of the reasons that it doesn't happen is because during the main remodel, 3 years ago now, during that project, we had a plan in place to put an exterior connection on River Block for a portable generator. And we were told by Quipco, Consolidated Water Power Company, that they had down for, let's say, more than 2 hours.
Mhm.
And I think they still would agree to that. However, during the project, the electrical inspector, he stopped that from happening. He looked at our plan to do that, and it was a manual lockout tail procedure to bring a temporary generator online and power our lighting, our elevators, just a few essentials. He didn't like that, and he said he would only allow it if we put in automatic transfer switches so that there was no human error that could cause problems to life or property.
And I checked on that myself, you know, when that happened. And all I can say is I think it was just political. Because some people did not want us to get that river block building. And they fought us county board for it. And it was just political. It was a way to stop us, you know, so. Then that's due to the electrical inspector, and that was a state inspector, correct?
We have state and local both.
I know
together
local
on that.
got kind of thrown out of it, but. Yeah,
So
okay,
I'm still hopeful though that in the future we will be able to put in some automatic transfer switches and get, if we have a portable that works, I'd want it to be able to connect to any of our buildings. That would be the goal. So I'm hoping to still work towards that. And if I could just jump back, the question about the windows, there's money budgeted this year to begin replacing windows at River Block. And I also have, as we get to capital, I have money requested to continue with River Block window replacement next year. It's gonna be maybe a 4-year process because it's a high dollar amount and we have a lot of needs. So we're planning to hit the most critical windows this year and continue on with another step next year.
Why are we using our money to work on somebody else's building?
So I understand the question, and it is not the most clear setup, but we own the building.
No, we don't.
We do. We own the building, but we don't own the property under it. So the way the purchase was worded is that the county does own the physical building, but we lease the property underneath it. And I'm not sure why. I don't know. Peter Kassenholz will be able to answer the reasons why. I think the foundation did not want to sell the property, but they didn't have a need for the building. So we lease the property that the building is on, but the building is all ours. So anything that happens with that building is the county's responsibility. And if you'd like, if you want follow-up on that, I can bring some of those documents to one of the next meetings for everybody to review.
okay, thank you for,
I have a quick question. What happens when the lease is up? Becomes a big part. Yeah, no, that's what she said. It becomes a big part. Who's liable to move the building? Yes.
We are.
Yeah.
There was, I remember there was some kind of an agreement that goes way back with the paper mill saying that this, whatever they have become, their organization, that their way of handling things is not to sell property. I think that's what it all amounted on, but they were willing to sell us the building. And yeah, it sounds like kind of a foolish situation. But I don't think there's a date on the lease that I'm aware of that.
30 years.
35 with the ability to extend 5.
All right, you're right. Yep, that's the way it was. I'm not gonna be here in 35 years.
and it was a unanimous decision of the county board, a unanimous
Yeah.
decision of everybody here. So,
Yeah, I didn't say it was a bad decision, Bill. I just said that's what's gonna happen in 30 years.
Yeah,
They're gonna have to deal with it. None of us are gonna have to worry about
yeah.
it. Maybe you.
Yeah, right.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, no, that's good. It was a good deal.
Yeah,
We got a good building. Look
Oh,
at
yeah.
the buildings we're gonna looking at that time. Holy Christmas.
well, I was
We're
on
looking at
Space
Millions.
Needs Committee, we were looking at 50 to 60 million to
Yeah.
build
Time we
something.
get everything done?
Yeah,
Oh. Like I said, we'll deal with it in 30 years. Maybe it'll all turn around by then.
yeah, plus we got the land now south, so.
No, we're all right.
Okay, any other questions? Of Ruben?
You're not on your, request for 2021 yet, right?
We can be.
I
guess we are.
Well, there's the ones for, no, you got some that are have explanations on them. I had one I just fast fingered, I can't figure out what it is. There's no explanation what's going on with it.
The other page number.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay.
Block windows, yeah, there it is, block windows. Well, maybe not. Elevator upgrade.
River
What's
Block
that one?
windows on page 27.
Yeah, I see that,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I said, they were.
Sorry.
No, that's fine, you're fine. Are we even looking at getting a second elevator in this building or no?
That, I know, has been discussed in years past. I think it was 2014, right before I started with the county, we did a pretty thorough space needs study. There was an ad hoc committee formed for that, and there was a firm that did a pretty thorough review of that. And at the time, I think that was one of the suggestions. It hasn't gone anywhere since then, and I don't think there was ever enough detail put into it to know a specific location for that elevator or a cost. I can tell you that it will be very expensive, and I think that it would make sense for us to do that in the future, especially if we are here in this courthouse for many, many years. Having a single elevator for this building is, it's not the best. And one of the reasons for that is, if we look at the request for the elevator upgrade that we need to do, that's very costly, and I'm told, at least by one contractor that I've talked with so far, we could be looking at as much as 8 to 10 weeks of time without an elevator that's usable in this building. That concerns me.
We've got a newer one, that's a freight elevator on 16, it's been down 3 months and it's still down.
Wow.
That's how long parts are out, everything is out, and that's a new elevator, this thing is older than I am.
Wow, yeah. So the elevator upgrade that's listed under 2021 is something that I was planning to bring in the next few years to the committee for review. However, I was told, to my surprise this year, that apparently the controls we have are now obsolete, and if something happens to them, there's no replacement, and they would be sent out for repair with no guarantee for how much longer they will work when they put it back in, and we could still be looking at over a month of downtime just to make that repair. Now, we have a full service contract on our elevators, the one here in the Truett River Block, and one of the reasons for that is that they're the professionals. They need to be looking at them often and giving us a heads up on this type of thing. So I was disappointed that that was presented to me in such a way. But again, with the information I was given, I thought it's time to bump that up and bring it for 2021, because that's a really important part of our facility, having a working elevator. And that's a pretty high on my list of things that need to get done.
Being that we're a public building, if we were without an elevator for 6 to 8 weeks, are there any ADA issues we have to deal with there, especially getting up to the courthouses or the
Yeah.
courtrooms?
Yeah, so I'm looking at some options on either some temporary lifts that would bolt on the side of the stairwells, but with having everything as broken stairwells, landing midway to every floor, we'd be talking about 4 lifts to get to the 3rd floor. We could bring people in on 2nd floor through the sheriff's department entrance. There's a ramp to there, and we would just have to be at 1 floor. I'm also looking at options for a powered stair chair. You have 2 people, one on the top, one on the bottom. It would power up and down the stairs for people that are unable to use them on their own. Regardless, it's not ideal, and it's going to be, I don't know how many thousands of dollars to have something to get us through that 8 to 10 weeks. So again, it's a bit of a hurdle. It's going to be a hassle, and I'm still collecting information to figure out what the best way is going to be to get that completed. 1956, right? That's supposed to be my answer.
It's amazing that it's worked that long. We had talked last time too about at the time, we're talking about adding on to the courthouse, so we're gonna put another elevator in, but it'll be, you know, on the south side, out by itself, actually. And, I don't know if that could be explored, if that would be, less cost than trying to put a new elevator in the hole that's there. But I'm sure you're working on that, so.
It's some of the ideas, and I look forward to this committee taking an interest in having more discussion on this. And because either way, adding a second elevator or adding on for a second, whether we find a location in the building or outside, it's going to be a very costly project. And so there needs to be county board commitment to that. I mean, it's not the same cost as a new building, obviously, but it's still going to be significant. There's other hurdles if we don't find a location within the building. If we're talking about something out front, our building, our courthouse is on the historical registry with the state.
Yeah.
So there's additional approvals, a whole nother group of people that we have to just make sure they're on board with the changes to the front, because it's on that registry, and they're gonna come and do a review and look at it and say, well, you guys have this hand-carved limestone right at the front doors, and, you know, what are you gonna do with that to preserve the historical value of the building?
Jackhammer.
I'll bring you to that meeting with me.
No, fine. That's the part people don't think when they do stuff like that. They put this on the National Historic, the building is beautiful. But now, we're hamstrung to do anything we need to do. And it's gonna cost us 3 times as much, and I don't see anybody jumping in to give us the money for it. So the county's stuck with it.
One thing I noticed this morning, just, I was here a few minutes early, so I was looking at the facade, where it says Wood County Courthouse, way up on top, you can barely read that anymore. I know we don't have any money now, but, maybe we could find somebody interested in financing that, because it'd be nice to have that, so you could see it again. I know we got the stone in front, but,
Yeah, that's, if I could, and that piece in particular is something that I've thought about, and in my mind, as we work through the next few years, again, trying to break down these projects, and they're gonna last a few years to get them completed, from start to finish. We're working on some exterior repairs, some tuck pointing, some sealing, taking care of our coping stones to stop water infiltration. One of the things that I really would like to do when that's complete is get the exterior of the courthouse and jail clean and then sealed.
yeah,
It was cleaned maybe 15 years ago, but it wasn't sealed, and so it got dirty quicker, and we didn't slow down the decay of other mortar and sealants. So when we seal the exterior, I would love to find somebody who would do some shading or staining
yeah,
on the lettering that's in the very top of the building, so that from across the river, you can see it, it stands out.
yeah,
And along with that, we have 6, if we have a historic building and we appreciate it, until that changes on the front, we have 6 panels, one along each side of the main entrance that we use, and then on the stairs on the second floor, there's one on each side of those, so there's 6 panels. They're a great piece of history. They were designed and carved by hand back in the 50s, and I would love to have some shading done before the building is sealed so that you can actually see those.
yeah,
Because until you're close to the building, or unless you know they're there, they just don't stand out.
barely
So-
visible. I noticed this morning too.
Right.
Just gotta really look close to see them.
Yeah, so again, that's a small detail in my mind that I have somewhere in the back file where when we get to that point, that's something I would be bringing to the committee to show, you know, here's the cost to do this small thing before we seal that exterior, to get this to stand out a little bit, to make it look a little more presentable.
Definitely. Do you have an approximate cost of doing an elevator, say on the south side or out in front? Just a rough cost for doing a new one? I thought we had something way back when, but I don't.
I would have to look back and see, there may have been a number put to that, I'm not sure if any of you that remember those discussions.
I don't remember. $1,000,004, but I can't.
I didn't think it was that. I remember they did one on a courthouse somewhere else in the state recently. It was a little under 300,000. They did an exterior, like you're saying, instead of trying to retrofit something in. You know, they built a tower, so to speak, and brought it up.
But I wanna say that almost rings a bell, what you're saying, because I think,
$1,004 keeps coming up on, I thought, wow.
I don't remember.
so I can bring those
I
documents.
hope I'm lying.
Yeah, yeah. That does sound familiar to me though too, you know,
I know.
that might have been the
Well, one
cause.
of the things was for courthouse security, you know, we're running inmates up with regular public, then you've got a sheriff's deputy that's gotta stand there with an inmate, and if the inmate loses his nut, with them in there, who does he protect, you know?
Right.
He's
We got
not-
another stairwell that does go up.
What's that?
There's another stairwell that goes up.
And there's no freight elevator, right? No,
Correct.
is that the
No,
problem?
it's the only one we got.
Yeah,
Because
that's a
there's,
problem.
it's a bank, right? Is there two, I'm trying to remember. Is it two elevators?
That's, River Block has two side by side.
Oh, okay,
Here we have a single, small
just the one,
elevator.
okay.
Yeah. So another topic that, not topic, same topic of elevators, another item I've been looking at is the issue of inmates using the only elevator we have. So that has been discussed in the past. We've looked at the possibility of a second elevator just for inmate transport from second floor to third floor. So there is a potential location for that. I've reviewed that a little bit in the past. That's another thing I can bring to this committee for review, just to get it in everybody's minds, because that would help us a little bit with only having one elevator. It doesn't help getting from second floor to first. It wouldn't be used for public. So limited use, but it would certainly help. Yeah, I'm glad to keep looking into that for us long term.
Good.
On the first one, on the next page, page 30, it's just there. Is that just the remodel? I think that's the only thing that is
Okay, yeah, that,
$200,000.
so if we talk about, you mentioned earlier, kind of prioritizing what we have for requests, because some of them could be a long shot. This is at the bottom of my list, not because I don't like the clerk of courts or any of their staff, but because I know that we're gonna have some challenges next year. So the reason this is still here, it was a placeholder for the last few years. There's a lot of needs on third floor that have been talked about in the last 5 years. About 2 years ago, we looked at kind of stretching out the remodeling for third floor and doing a step at a time. And so what we are doing this year is moving the DA's office. So the DA is expanding, they're already crammed into their space. We, in a couple of weeks, actually today, we are nearly finished with that space as far as construction goes. Now we start looking at some of the network connections getting activated in that space. Some of the furniture and file cabinets will start moving in. So this year's part of third floor is moving the DA along with the Corporation Counsel's office going to the old DA space. And then that frees up a location for an office for our county board chair again, because right now there temporarily isn't anything. So next year would be moving the clerk of courts off of the main north-south hallway where they are currently, next to the DA's new space, which is over to the east. If you get off the elevator, you turn left, it's the old human services space. That would be the next step, the next domino to fall, so to speak. After that, we would start looking at where clerk of courts is removed, would become a courtroom. That would allow us, once that's done, to move branch 1 temporarily to that location, because branch 1 needs some significant remodeling. Once that's finished, there's some other possibilities for third floor. What we have right now for a reserve courtroom is not an adequate space. It's not set up in an appropriate way for court, and it's used often. So that's, I guess, just a few of those kind of dominoes to fall, and that's what we were starting to get into with the previous ad hoc property committee a couple of years ago. So again, glad to bring those ideas all back to the table for you guys to discuss.
Mhm.
Sorry, so Supervisor Hamilton, a little clarification on the clerk of courts remodel. That may not have answered your question.
Probably not,
So then, Mr. Chairman, if I could, if we just run through, if you guys want to look at some of what I have in the 2021 list, I have an overview, a summary sheet for you that was in the packet, and then also with that are the individual sheets for 2021, just for discussion here. You'll see on the summary sheet that I have 4 items highlighted. And the reason for that is so that it's easier for you and the operations committee and anybody else to see that the highlighted items are being requested out of debt. The are not highlighted are being requested out of the maintenance fund. So the items out of the maintenance fund have no impact on any other debt moving forward, and they would not be a direct levy either.
Just out of curiosity, what are we looking at for a tractor? Is that for maintenance, I assume, huh?
That's the NIC, that's all I put on the summary sheet is a tractor. So we have small tractors that we use, lawn tractors for snow removal primarily. We have an ever increasing length of sidewalk to clear in the winter time, even with the upcoming property that we're acquiring on Jackson Street, even more sidewalk to clear. So between courthouse, jail locations, River Block, the Muppet Lot, the Elks Lot, and now this one up here, I would have to tell you how many feet. There's a lot of feet of sidewalk to clear. So we last year upgraded one of our older tractors that was becoming unreliable. And now our current older unit, we have the same issue where it's not as reliable, and before it becomes a pile of rust, it's time to get a new machine.
So it's a replacement, it's not an
It's a
additional?
replacement.
Okay. Okay,
So some of the items, again, just on the summary, courthouse MEP updates, that's mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. And the reason I list it that way, an explanation to this group, is that we have so many needs as far as mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems in the courthouse and jail. That should be CH/jail. We have so many needs with the age of our equipment that it's easiest for me to say, this is the amount of money I want to be able to spend this old equipment this year. And we're gonna just start upgrading and replacing the oldest and the worst. And a lot of it is smaller sums, and so it doesn't even qualify to be listed separately as more than $5,000 if it's going to be listed under CIP, but we have a lot of items to replace. And this allows us to maximize that amount of money to replace those items versus calling out just one specific project if it comes in under budget, and usually we help do a lot of the labor ourselves. If we come in under budget, now we can move on to the next one. And we're just gonna keep going and upgrading those old parts that are in need of replacement and get as much done as we can in a year's time. Similar when we look at courthouse updates and repairs and river block updates and repairs, it could be similar things. It could be departments that have old carpeting and old lighting, and we're trying to move towards LED lighting and replace the old worn carpet that looks really shady and ratty. It's the same thing. We do a lot of that as much as we can in-house to save money, and we just want to be able to get as far as we can.
mm-hmm. And we have two aging buildings which need a lot of work, so put out fires as you can. Okay, any other questions of Ruben?
Mr. Chairman, can I just make a comment? Yeah, first of all, every department head knows that CIP is the lowest hanging fruit when we run into a problem at the end of the year, from the budget perspective, obviously. I know we're talking 2021 stuff, but that's the place that tends to get cut. Some of this, though, we really do need to keep an eye on. Just want to answer a couple questions. Brad made a point on the National Historical Registry. We ended up there, we didn't seek to be there.
No, we didn't.
And when I found out that I'm old enough to be on that registry, I was a little concerned, because I'm as old as the building. Elevator, that is gonna be a concern at some point. One of the things we also have to be cognizant of is the public traffic in this courthouse is down significantly since we moved most of those departments over to River Block. So that doesn't mean it's gonna last forever, but we might get by a few more years than we're hoping to do. The other thing was, Bill's take on, why are we fixing a building that is in effect a lease type situation on the building. So there's not a building in the world that's used commercially where you're not gonna replace carpet and windows and things like that every 5 to 10, 20 years on windows probably. if we were 28 years, 27 years into this, as we started to renegotiate, I would have the same take you are. Maybe we ought to look at this and see where we're gonna be, but we're 30 years out, so from an energy savings and everything else, we have to do it. And then the last thing, because I got another meeting, I'm gonna have to go there, I wanna mention, some of you saw an email that came in from Judge Brazo on the 3rd floor. When I left here, I didn't mean to walk out of the meeting, but I had a quick meeting with Judge Potter up there. He wanted to discuss something with me. Those rules apply only to the courtroom, not the 3rd floor. And apparently, according to Judge Potter and Judge Wolf, only to Judge Brazo's courtroom. So there's gonna be a follow-up. They were drafting it when I was up there. There's gonna be a follow-up email coming out today to clarify that. I had a lot of calls over the last couple of days and some concerns. They do have jurisdiction within the courtrooms, not within the hallway, so to speak, unless somebody's in contempt. So you're gonna see a follow-up to that. I had a lot of questions from board members as far as county board meetings and just moving back and forth. So again, apologize for my leaving, but that's what the purpose was. You're gonna see that later today.
Good. Thanks, Lance. Okay, anything else?
You'll need a motion on the CIP.
Yeah. Next, yep.
So,
Okay, for a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion and a second to approve the CIP. Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that motion was approved. Okay, RNS committee report. Who's got
I
that?
can give that.
Okay.
We've been kind of put on hold with the coronavirus and the budget ramifications.
Right.
But we've been working on meeting the goals set forth in the energy plan that was approved this last year. And do you know if that group is gonna come and do the energy survey of the courthouse still, or is that,
I'm waiting to hear. And last time it was, Nancy had that information, she was gonna reach out and ask them to contact me or somebody about getting something set up, and I haven't heard anything.
I'd imagine a lot of that is on hold due to the situation we're in. We've been looking at some possible grants for an electric vehicle charging station out in the courthouse parking lot. That was gonna be kind of in conjunction with the health department. They were thinking about purchasing an electric vehicle and then it could be charged. You're right here to save some money on gas, because a lot of their people are driving around quite a bit during the day. Our lean process and renewable grants, the applications came in last week, so I think we'll probably hold a meeting in the next 2 or 3 weeks to look those over and approve those, and then we'll send them back to this committee. Is there any questions about what is going on in the renewable sustainable committee?
Hasn't this been sold? Hasn't your, plant out there in City Stoke been sold?
Which,
In the solar farm.
Yeah.
oh yeah, that has nothing to do with the county. Lion Energy is taking over the, you're talking about the Saratoga.
Yeah.
Yeah, the county doesn't own that. That was being put in by some person.
Yeah, and that's just going from the construction company to the provider. That's how every project is. It's built by the company, goes to an energy provider, Alliant, or distributor, I guess.
But the county didn't have anything.
We had nothing to do with that.
with it.
Alright.
Okay. Any other?
I
Ruben?
guess, Mr. Chairman, just as a matter of review, an overview, I'm gonna hand out the description of the Renewable and Sustainable Committee to you, just so that if there's questions, it's easy to review. This is edited from its original version. Last year, at the time the executive committee made a change to the committee responsibilities. So again, just for your reference, because with the creation of this committee now oversees the Renewable and Sustainable Committee. So where that committee with, I think 2 county board supervisors and 3 staff, it's now 5 county board supervisors. And what I gave you is the charge to that committee. And what they act on or recommend comes back to this group then, for forwarding to the county board.
Nails it down better, it was kind of loose before. Good. Thanks, Ruben. Okay, unless there's anything else, I guess we can set the date for the next meeting.
And maybe the place up north.
And what?
Can you,
Place, okay.
can you do that now, Lance? If they wanted to have a meeting and
Can they? They can, should they, is a better question, and I would consult with Sue and then the other members of the committee to see how comfortable they are in attendance. They're all here today. Then the other thing is the facility up there, what are you gonna use for a facility? To have the meeting, Bill, what are you thinking?
No, I just thought if you had the meeting, you know, for people to view the property and things like that.
I'm not sure what the rules are in that building,
Are we talking City Hall Plaza?
City Hall, yeah.
That we can enter. And there's not restrictions, nor would an Edgewater still have restrictions.
Oh, okay.
So to address Bill's thing, I think you set your meeting date and leave that location to the call of the committee chair and see how
I was
that,
gonna say, the 6 foot was,
There's not space in City
They're
Hall.
not-
It's pretty, the room we used to meet in is pretty small. Very small. So that room wouldn't work, I don't think. I know it won't.
It's narrow and
Yeah.
not all too long, so I think under normal circumstances, this group could fit in there, it would be at capacity, it'd be
Yeah.
pretty tight. We'd all be shoulder to shoulder.
And there really is no other room available, I don't think, is there?
Not on, at least where we did the most recent remodel on the second floor.
So I guess they kinda,
I guess to Bill's point, Mr. Chair, I'd put that on your future list of places to be. so you see it.
yeah, it's, just, if this thing ever blows over, I don't think it's going to, but if it ever does, maybe we can do something like that. Okay, as far as date and time, I think we agreed to meet monthly or as needed, or what's your input there, Amy?
I would think monthly.
Okay. Okay, and, we're at the first Monday, and also the first day. Does that work for everybody?
I'm on early 12, I have to,
You mean the 6th of July?
Yeah, that's what would be, Brad's got a conflict.
it's no conflict if I'm not busy in the middle, I can,
Oh, okay.
but if the machine breaks off, I'm gone, I just walk out. So,
Well, just,
go ahead and set it up to the
Wanna do
6th
that?
of the month. I got no
Okay.
problem.
okay. So July 6th, you said, Bill?
July 6th.
And now you're holding it, hopefully within 9:30
What's
time.
the courtworks holiday?
Might as well stay with it if it works
Yeah, I
for
think it's a
everybody.
good time.
What's the courthouse holiday before we, I don't
Oh,
know.
right, I didn't think of that, yeah.
It's either the 3rd or the 6th.
Yeah, that's, well, that's,
Okay.
That's right.
IT will tell us.
I think I'd have it in my calendar.
I've got Independence Day the 3rd, but I don't know if that's observed.
Hmm,
yeah, I have that on my phone calendar, but that's not the county calendar.
That's not, yeah, this is on the county calendar.
I'll go last week.
okay.
Clancy, they aren't closed to 6, they be closed to 3rd, I think, on Friday.
2020.
I would guess, but I don't know for sure.
A 3-day holiday?
Yeah, for them, because it's on, the 4th is on a Saturday.
It's
Well, yeah, I
July
see
3rd.
that.
The third, so you're good on the 6th.
Yeah, it's the 3rd.
It is 3rd.
Okay, so the 6th is good, okay? Okay. Okay, anything else coming before this committee?
9:30 again?
Yeah, might as well stick with that, yeah. Anything else? If not, I want to declare the meeting adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
The fleet pass.